And there are significant differences between how cases are handled on the two coasts. Probably one of the biggest things that impacts me is the ability of, let's call them the stakeholders in the litigation, to want to look at a possibly different approach. Maybe it's not very different, but they're willing to look at some different ways to skin the cat, so to speak, and try and get the case resolved. West Coast is a little more entrenched. It's been around longer. We're much more proficient on the West Coast at CMOs, et cetera. But the East Coast is a little more amenable to that. There's also some other differences. For example, on the East Coast, especially in the HOA arena, where the HOAs are typically paying their attorneys and experts every month as they go. No contingency fees. And about somewhere between 15 and 24 months into the process, the HOA board shows up and says, we're done with this. We want this resolved. And of course, in a sense, that's what the defense has been looking for. It's an opportunity to shut this case down. Doesn't always mean that they get a good deal, but compared to the West Coast approach, what I call the West Coast approach, they do typically get a little better deal. And their expenses are a little bit less. So that's probably the biggest single difference, besides all the legal issues that come into play and some of the insurance coverage issues. The world of hardware and software is unbelievable out there today. My office, from myself and my 3.5 staff members, we have a virtual office. Everything we do is on the cloud. We work off-site servers. When we're working as a neutral expert on a case, everything's in the cloud. Data is accessible immediately. It's very difficult to play hide the ball anymore. You really have to go out of your way. And if you want to try and shut down a case faster and save some money, and all sides save money, you have to be able to do that. We're doing webinars now. So early on in the process, or for example, you would be doing a scope of work mediation, for example, or even the early presentations of plaintiff's data or the neutral data. We put on a webinar, and we did a little analysis after the last one we just did in Jacksonville, Florida. Had everybody come to Jacksonville, all the parties, and most of them are in that area, but not all of them, all the hotel bills, all the airfare, the time beforehand to meet and discuss and do all the things, it's about a $250,000 bill for all the parties involved. We did a webinar, about $42,000. They're very efficient, very effective, but you have to remember also, for example, if you're putting on a presentation in a webinar fashion, it has to be a much more polished presentation than what most of us are used to seeing, or you will not get the same effect because you're not standing there to add emphasis to it. So if you do a very good job, it's very effective.